Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing Episode 105, Misty Meets Her Match. The episode begins with Ash and the gang on the ferry from the end of last episode, on their way to Trovita Island. That's right, we were actually going to get there this episode. As they arrive, they notice large spikes around the island, around 10 meters high, and Tracy explains that they were formed millions of years ago when the island initially rose out of the ocean, also with the help of the island's many surrounding whirlpools. Ash then turns his attention to his gym battle and states how excited he was for it. And man, I am too. I hope you can win so that we can get this fucking gym battle over with. It's taken us way too long to get here by this point. Ash's gym battle talk is then cut off, though, as Pikachu spots a young girl caught in a current between three huge spikes with her pet seal. After hearing her screams for help, Ash and the gang immediately decide that they have to do something about it, and proceed to do so. As the girl continues to float in the ocean, getting farther and farther away, her screams are then heard by a man who was watching everything go down with his binoculars. He screams in panic, indicating that he knew who the girl was. He then watches through his binoculars in astonishment as he sees Misty send out her Staryu and swim up to the girl, saving her and her seal before they drowned, as they had now fallen deep into the water at this point. Misty then swims up to Ash, who was currently on his Lapras, and Ash helps Misty load the girl onto Lapras's shell and help her regain consciousness, with her seal simply watching, unable to do anything. Seal wasn't the only one watching, as the man from earlier was still watching through his binoculars as well, and he had even called over all of his friends to show them Ash and Misty helping the girl onto the Lapras, stating how fucking awesome Misty was, with her impressive skills with her Staryu. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang had managed to wake up the little girl, and were now sailing with her on Lapras back towards land, with Team Rocket spying on them from their Magikarp sub. They were trying their best to get up close to Ash and the gang, but they were failing, even with Meowth and James going twice as fast as the Lapras, of course doing all the pedaling because Jessie was too busy spying. James then realizes the reason why they weren't picking up any speed was because they were caught in a whirlpool, but it was too late to do anything about that now, as the whirlpool dragged them down in the water. Anyways, as Ash and Misty are taking the girl back to shore, they question why the fuck she was out so deep in the water when she should clearly just be in the shallow end, and the girl clarifies that her name was Mari, and she did try to stay in the shallow end, but then a current dragged her out to sea, and her seal was unable to do anything, as all it seemed to be able to do was fucking play. As Lapras arrives at shore, it's immediately greeted by the man and his friends who were observing with the binoculars earlier. The man immediately runs up to Mari as soon as she gets off the Lapras and hugs her, revealing that he was her brother. That's why he was so scared for her, and so impressed by Misty for what she was able to do. When Ash and the gang then join all them on the pier, the man reveals that his name is Rudy and thanks them all for what they did for his sister, and particularly thanks Misty by having his friends all cosplay as him. That's fucking weird, and they all give her a bouquet of flowers each as a reward. Rudy had clearly developed a very strong affection towards Misty, as he then asked her to dance romantically with him, as he instructed one of his friends, who had since gotten out of the cosplay, to play some music. He practically forces Misty to dance with him, sweeping her off her feet, quite literally, and takes her Togepi and hands him to Ash, leaving Ash and Tracy just standing there alone, questioning what the fuck this guy was doing. Hopefully he wasn't like a sexual predator. As he dances with her, he reveals that he was in fact not a predator, but a gym leader, being the gym leader of Trovita. He reveals this when he tries to win Misty over by complimenting her skills and stating how awesome she was for saving his sister, and asking Misty to help him instruct his gym trainers at his gym. Ash is extremely shocked that a tool like this guy could be the Trovita gym leader, but he still demands a challenge, just wanting that third badge. And Pikachu did as well, as Pikachu cried. Rudy didn't hear a word though, as he was too distracted by dancing with the beautiful Misty, so this led Rudy's sister, who Ash had helped, to repay the favor and basically demand that her brother give Ash a match. Rudy gets pissed off at Ash trying to interrupt his dancing with Misty, and proceeds to call him a rude bitch, with Ash correcting him that Rudy was the rude bitch. Rudy jokes about how his name had the word rude in it, but that didn't mean that he was rude, and proceeds to brag about his own skill, asking Ash why he thought he'd be able to win. Ash points to his 2 Orange League badges that he's already won, which convinces Rudy to accept Ash's challenge, although first he would have to complete a test. This test involved riding across the water in a speedboat, and whenever targets would come up, Ash would have to make sure that he could successfully knock down every single one with one of his Pokemon's attacks. This was meant to test a Pokemon's attack power. Ash accepts the challenge, and proceeds to get on Rudy's speedboat, with Rudy and Misty sitting in the back, so Rudy could have more chances to hit on her, and Ash, Tracy, and Mari sitting in the front. Eventually, Ash spots the first target behind a rock, and has Pikachu use Thunderbolt to absolutely destroy the bitch. He only gets congratulations from Tracy and Mari, as Rudy was too preoccupied with giving Misty even more flowers, the simp that he was, and this obviously distracting Misty as well. He still had a chance to prove himself with the second target though, which also appeared behind another rock. Ash sent out a different Pokemon this time, being Charizard. I don't know why the fuck he even bothers, as Charizard simply flies, not toward the target, but toward the speedboat, and begins angrily breathing fire at everyone, not just Ash. Thankfully though, everyone's able to duck just in time, and Ash is like, alright, yeah, this was definitely a mistake, and recalls Charizard almost instantly. It was too late though, as not everyone had managed to duck. Charizard had successfully burned Misty, not even Rudy, who was sitting right beside her. But anyways, this obviously severely angered Misty and Rudy, as they both screamed at Ash, and Ash tried his best to apologize, but to no avail, so he just moved on with the challenge, awaiting the third target, which eventually arrived. However, this target's location was a little inconvenient for Team Rocket, who had just surfaced in their Magikarp sub, and now a target was blocking their view. Team Rocket was just about to reveal themselves and do their motto, when Ash decided to send out Squirtle and use him for the third target, ordering it to use Water Gun. The Water Gun also causes a tree to fall right by the target, which hits Team Rocket's Magikarp sub, sending them blasting off. The challenge continues on for several more targets, but with the help of Pikachu and its Thunderbolt, Squirtle and its Water Gun, and Bulbasaur and its Razor Leaf, Ash is able to successfully pass the challenge, knocking down every single target. Misty cheers, much to Rudy's annoyance, who wanted all her attention. But despite his annoyance, he still fully accepted Ash's challenge, not breaking his word, as he took Ash to the gym and told him that the battle would take place first thing tomorrow, and it would involve 3 Pokemon versus 3 Pokemon. Since Ash passed the challenge, he was allowed to pick what types these Pokemon were allowed to be, and Ash obviously picked Electric, Water, and Grass, as those were the 3 main types that he had, with Pikachu, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. To kill some time until tomorrow, Rudy decides to take Mari and Misty, not Ash and Tracy, out for a fancy dinner, once again essentially just trying to prove himself to Misty with money. Now being by themselves, Ash and Tracy are bored, so they decide to give Professor Oak a call and update him on what's been going on, even though they just talked to him last episode. Ash informs him that he was about to have his third gym battle, leading Oak to wish him luck, but then Ash leaves the call with Pikachu to go eat dinner, because he's a hungry bastard, so that just leaves Tracy alone with his idol, which gives him the opportunity to show Professor Oak a lot of his sketches, including one with an Elekid on it in a forest. He stated that he didn't quite know what this Pokemon was, as you know, this Elekid is from Gen 2, we're in the Gen 1 anime, guys, and that's because this Elekid was from the second Pokemon movie, which I have not summarized yet. I don't know when I'll get to the movies, but yeah. Meanwhile, Rudy, Misty, and Mari were just finishing their fucking super rich dinner, as opposed to Ash and Tracy's dinner that they had, that Rudy quickly must have prepared for them or some shit. And with dinner done, Rudy then shows Misty to the gym area of his gym, which actually acted as a place where he stored all his Pokemon, outside of their Pokeballs, allowing them to dance to a whole bunch of music all the time. Rudy explains why the reason why he liked his Pokemon to dance as much as possible was because it allowed them to have fun and express themselves in other ways aside from battling. If all they did was battling, they'd grow bored of it and refuse to battle most likely, so he wanted to make sure that they always had fun as well. And hey, all these dance moves could also benefit them in battle as well. Maybe it could change some of their attacks. Misty doesn't fully grasp the link between battling and dancing, and just stares at Rudy's numerous fully evolved Pokemon, including a Pidgeot, Electabuzz, Alakazam, Venomoth, Ninetales, Golem, Hitmonchan, and Rhydon. Rudy then asks Misty to dance with him again, wanting to join his sister, who had proceeded to pick up Togepi out of Misty's arms and go dancing with it. Misty's having a fun time dancing, but she then immediately stops when Rudy suggests that she leave Ash and the gang, and instead join him and permanently live on the island. Misty genuinely starts to think about this offer, despite just meeting the guy, which, okay, I guess is fair. It's not like her and Ash have the closest relationship, even though they arguably love each other, but, you know, I can see why Misty would think this over, but Rudy could see that she was clearly not set in stone one way or the other, and just told her to make her decision after the match tomorrow, likely implying that the way that he would beat Ash would impress her enough to want to stay with him forever. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they had blasted off onto one of the island's large spikes, and were currently basically teeter-totting on top of it, about to fall off, so they were making sure not to make any sudden moves. Unfortunately, due to how cramped the Magikarp sub was, it was impossible to not move around for long, so this caused the Magikarp sub to fall off the pillar into the water, coincidentally getting stuck in another whirlpool, dragging it down even further. The next morning, it was finally time for the gym battle to begin, and the battle was going to take place on a stadium resting on top of one of the island's spikes. Spectators of the battle, including Misty and Tracy, were watching from a hot air balloon due to how high up the spike was. And one of Rudy's friends was acting as the referee, riding on top of a Pidgeot. It was then time for the gym battle to officially commence, as both Ash and Rudy walked out, and the announcer declared that the electric Pokemon should battle first, so he sent out his Pikachu, and Rudy sent out his Electabuzz. Pikachu launches the first attack, being Thunderbolt, but, unfortunately, Electabuzz pulls a Magnemite and simply absorbs the electricity. Pikachu then charges to the Electabuzz with a Quick Attack, since Quick Attack wasn't an electric move. However, even this backfires on Pikachu, as Electabuzz was way bigger, so its Quick Attack ends up just doing more damage to Pikachu as a result, knocking it to the ground, making Electabuzz able to uppercut it with a Thunder Punch, knocking it out, as Ash picks up his Pikachu in sadness. During all of this, Misty was still contemplating on if she should go with Ash or go with Rudy. Maybe the battle would also decide that. Anyways, the battle then commenced, with Grass Pokemon coming out next, Rudy sending out his Exeggutor, and Ash sending out Bulbasaur. Rudy then requests one of his friends to play music, hoping to prove to Misty that Pokemon dancing did actually benefit their actual battle skills as well. As the music plays, Exeggutor dances, being able to dodge Bulbasaur's Razor Leaf because of this. Rudy taunts Ash that this was a 2 out of 3 battle, so if he won, Rudy would automatically win without having to go into a third battle, as he then orders his Exeggutor to use Egg Bomb. This Egg Bomb knocks Bulbasaur down and sends him flying toward the very edge of the cliff of the spikes, indicating that he would fall off if he got hit one more time. Exeggutor makes its way over to Bulbasaur and proceeds to do some taunting of its own, which makes Bulbasaur get really stressed out. Thankfully, though, Ash then orders Bulbasaur to use sleep powder, which successfully puts Exeggutor to sleep, and since he was so close to the cliff, he falls off of the cliff due to not being able to stand while he was sleeping, and he runs right into Team Rocket, who were currently scaling the cliff, trying to get back up, and he knocks them down into the water in the process. Luckily for the Exeggutor, though, it doesn't fall down with Team Rocket, as Bulbasaur manages to save it by pulling it up with its vines. With Exeggutor still being asleep, though, Rudy couldn't use him any longer, so he had to forfeit this part of the match, meaning it was now 1-1 and time for the final matchup between the water types. Ash sent out his Squirtle, and Rudy sent out his Starmie, declaring this last battle in honor of Misty, hoping to convince her to stay with him. And, he's using a Starmie, who used to be one of her Pokemon before she gave it to her sisters, so maybe it would work. Despite being the final battle, it begins relatively boringly, with both Pokemon just shooting water gun after water gun at each other, with each water gun obviously not doing much, since they were both water types. Rudy gets extremely bored of this, so he decides to play some music. Not just for himself, no, because it would also allow Starmie to start spinning. Rudy begins spinning with it, and Starmie manages to dodge a whole bunch of Squirtle's water guns due to this spinning. Rudy decides to use Starmie's spinning for more than just dodging, though, as he orders Starmie to use Thunderbolt while spinning, sending a spiraling Thunderbolt directly towards Squirtle, which severely injures it, much to everyone's shock, because how the fuck could a water Pokemon use an electric move? That's fucking broken. Rudy figured that this electric attack would impress Misty, and it did for a moment, but unfortunately for Rudy, Misty then very loudly cheers for Ash to win, stating that he was the only one capable of bringing out Squirtle's real power, and that no one else could do so, referring to how Ash always managed to come up with some sort of strategy. Although Ash doesn't even appreciate the advice, stating that Misty was just distracting him, Rudy still gets immensely jealous of the attention that Misty was giving Ash, thinking that she loved Ash instead of him, and he gets so distracted by this that he forgets to attack the Squirtle. This allows the Squirtle to break free from the Thunderbolt's hold by using Water Gun, but due to the water having a reaction to the electricity, this also sends Squirtle plummeting off of the cliff. Squirtle is able to save itself, though, by withdrawing into its shell, and using a new move to shoot a whole bunch of water out of its shell, allowing it to use it to spin itself back up to where Starmie was standing, being able to do so due to the water essentially forming a circle around it, and it being able to bounce off of the circle in a way. When Tracy spotted all this water come out of Squirtle's shell, he immediately knew, along with Misty, that Squirtle had just learned a new move, Hydro Pump, the strongest water attack, apparently. The Hydro Pump still gave Squirtle momentum after being launched back up onto the cliff, so it uses this momentum to strike Starmie super hard with a Hydro Pump, almost knocking it out, but only sending it back, meaning that Squirtle still had to do one more attack, being a Skull Bash, to fully finish it off. But he does, winning Ash the match. Ash holds up Squirtle in celebration and cheers for all of his Pokemon. He had done it! As Ash and the gang prepare to leave for the next island on Lapras as the sun sets, Rudy then gives Ash his third Orange League badge, the Spike Shell badge. Much to Ash's enjoyment, as he holds up the badge with pride. Rudy doesn't stop giving gifts there, though, as he gives Misty even more flowers. This time, though, he really just did that as a nice gesture, and was thankfully taking Misty's rejection quite well. Still stating to Ash, though, how he was a little bit jealous of him, and how Ash should feel very lucky to have earned Misty's affection. And Misty actually doesn't rebuttal anything like, what do you mean, I hate Ash or nothing? So, even more Ash and Misty shipping this episode, like last episode. Interesting. Actually, I guess it wasn't last episode, it was more like 2 episodes ago at this point, or 3, but whatever. Ash, still being as oblivious to love as ever, doesn't know what Rudy's talking about, and simply shrugs off what he just said. More excited to board Lapras and head for the next island, as Ash and the gang say goodbye to Rudy, Rudy's friends, and Mari.